G'day guys, Mad Matt here once again. So I just wanted to show you something because I know some of you guys I've seen this on Facebook and stuff, people asking the question. So as per usual, I'm playing with my 80 series. I'm always over maintaining it. But anyway, I wanted to show you this. So this is the Spindle Bush. Now what this bush does is it sits in here on the CV. Now I've packed it full of grease and all that, but that's the CV there, and this bush runs right where my finger's touching there, and its job is to support the CV whilst it's rotating, because this is rotating the whole time, unless you've got a part-time kit. This is rotating the whole time the vehicle's driving, and this bush stops the CV from flogging around and shaking too much. Now, a couple of things to mention about this. Firstly, sometimes you'll hear on the Land Cruisers a horrific grinding noise. It can be this bush has run dry. So that's just one tip I say to you. But now, what I tend to find is that I run the later model or a modified setup. So the later model 80s had this setup. Now this is available from these guys, Terrain Tamer, and it's this. So that's my old bush, okay? Fully bronze bush or brass bush. But see this? See how we've got this needle roller bearing down in there? All right, as well as the bush. Now, the beauty of that is the needle roller gives you a much better life because it's not relying on the grease to lubricate it. And the grease tends to, you know, dry out so much, as much. So a bush, I should say, a bush requires a lot more grease to keep lubricated than a bearing does. A bearing will rotate, so there's just less chance of wear and there's more support and that for that CV. So having these needle rollers, this later sort of design, is a great way of solving that issue. So so that's why I sort of go for these upgraded and later model spindles. Okay, now the other thing that happens with these stubs is this is where your inner bearing runs, where my finger's touching there. Okay, now what can happen when they get a bit older in this area, the bearing race, the inner race rotates and spins on this part of the spindle here, and when it does that, it basically wears and it all becomes loose, and basically with a big wheel, especially when you're running oversized wheels, this whole area wears out and your wheel doesn't get held as perfectly right as it should be, and water and moisture can get down into your wheel bearings quite easily. And the other issue in that same vein is that this area here is where your inner wheel bearing seal is running, and when that gets a bit worn, then the seal can't seal as well, and again, if the bearings are worn and the seal's not quite as good, another area that moisture can get into the wheel bearings and cause us grief. So hopefully that's some helpful information. All right, I'm going to keep putting this back together, hoping to get this all done in the next hour or so. So I'm Mad Matt. Stay safe on the trails. Don't get too greasy either.